Okay, we are live. You all may begin.
All right, everyone, I guess it is time to call to order the budget workshop for the Hendry County School Board. I know this is a more informal meeting than our business meetings, and we don't have an official agenda on this. So I would like to hand it over to Superintendent Paletti and let him guide us into this first part of the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In just a few moments, Ms. Riccardi is going to work through a slide presentation for you that we sent out yesterday. In addition, last week I sent you a copy of all of our general operating fund contracts for you to review to see what each one is paying for. That's not going to require any action yet. That's for you to review and for you to question. Reverend Brown, I'll give you another copy tomorrow when we're probably.
That's great.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Riccardi, who has been working very hard to present this, to develop this PowerPoint for you. And this is also an open forum for which you can ask any questions. Ms. Riccardi suggested this meeting. We will have our first, I believe, estimates on May 1st, but we wanted to give this to you up front going into the estimate this evening. Ms. Riccardi?
Thank you. Am I on? All right. Good evening. And as they said, this is going to be very informal. As Mr. Paletti said, I want this to be informal. So jump in if I say something that doesn't get you where you're going. The purpose of today, if you want to go ahead and, so you don't have to see me, I think Jason can put up the PowerPoint presentation.
There you go if you can.
Ms. Riccardi, I'm going to go ahead and share your PowerPoint presentation. If you would, please just guide me through so that I can navigate according to your purpose.
So I'll say next when it's time to change it, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you could confirm that you see my screen.
All right, next.
Just a moment. I'm going to put it in presentation mode.
There we go. That looks good.
Okay.
Now you do good. It's
Okay. Awesome, Jason. I think that's going to work for us. Okay. The purpose of today is really to start talking about the upcoming budget process. I plan to discuss our revenue sources. I want to discuss some of the actions we've already taken, plus things that are going to be forthcoming for the next year's budget. And finally, I want to make note of any decisions or priorities that you individually or as a group have for me. Next. Let's talk a little bit about the budget process. First of all, the budget process is so much directed by Florida statutes. The balanced budget, and I'll discuss this later, but it is required that we have a balanced budget. What that means is that revenues plus reserves has to equal expenditures plus reserves. So it doesn't mean you can't use fund balance, it doesn't mean you can't appropriate fund balance, but it does mean that you can't do more than what you have on hand. You can't budget for more than one. Next. Okay. This says, the title of this is GWAR or something like budget, that is the facts of this. The budget is a guess. There is very few exact anythings at this point. For example, the state, with the revenue sources, the state FPFP, which I'm going to direct in a little bit, provides over 75% of the general fund revenue. It's huge, but it's also not exactly what I'm going to tell you it is. Staffing, employees' costs are 77% of the budget, a little bit more than percent of the budget. But just because I budget for it doesn't mean that's how it happens. If I budget somebody that's $40,000 plus their benefits, and they quit mid-year or they start mid-year, they're no longer going to be that full $40,000. You hire them in at a rate higher than the entry level for various reasons. So our staffing costs, it's just an estimate, but it does represent about 77% of the general fund. Operating costs, we're kind of restricted there too. For example, electricity and water represents about 3% of the budget, $2 million. Electricity, water, sewer, garbage, you're not going to change that. Going to continue to, we're going to budget for the garbage and sewer we need. Let's see, but again, you don't know what the costs are going to be until the fiscal is over, and then it's not a budget, audit or financial report. As we're looking and as you start seeing my numbers, we're going to see that, first of all, some of the costs can be reduced in the short term. But that type of action isn't sustainable. For example, you can defer maintenance, you can delay carpet cleaning, you can delay pressure washing, but all these things eventually have to be done. So as we go through this, we may consider things that we can change to reduce the any budget deficit or to make our budget better balanced. But we got to make sure that we do it all in a sustainable way. There's many variables up ahead of us. Next. Great. Some of the challenges that I've already encountered, I think I told you this at the last board meeting, is we expect our property insurance to increase 15%. That has an impact of about $150,000. That in my numbers that I've already created, I've already included that. Health insurance costs. I don't know that there's going to be an increase, but if there were a 5% increase, that would be about $280,000. That's a good number. FRS, we talked about that. Let me go back. What I've been doing is I've been manually calculating for every individual in the general fund, their wages and their benefits, and then I've been manually entering it into the system. We never do things manually, but it's important right now that we do that so that we all, mostly me, gain an understanding of it and make sure that every number that's in there is close to accurate. But also that enabled me to calculate the correct retirement FRS rates, assuming the new FRS rates. That is, it used to be 8.47, and now it's 10.0 for most classes. So anyway, that does have an increase school district-wide. Interest rates are down. That will decrease revenue. The current year, when we budgeted $270,000 in the general fund for interest rates, I'm only expecting to get about $235,000 this year. Next year, my budget would probably be about $150,000 or $130,000 less. So what does that mean? If you add up the $450,000 that I just mentioned in expenses, the $130,000 loss in revenues, that is a $580,000 gap we got to make up from the last year. I would call that my new challenge. Next. So let's talk a little bit about revenue. I know you all know this, but sometimes it's good to remember. In 1973, the Florida legislature created the FEFP program. The purpose of this program is to equalize funding so that each student in the public education system receives programs and services that are substantially equal to those available to any other student in the state. So whether you live in Miami, Tallahassee, or Pensacola, you're going to get a substantially equal education. That's what our FEFP does. Again, that represents 77% of our general fund budget. Next. Okay. We can skip the first two parts to this, but I think that when we're going to talk about the final conference report, which really can be considered the first calculation of the FEFP, the only reason why I don't consider it that is because, to the best of my knowledge, the government hasn't signed the Appropriations Act. And I think once he does that, the first calculation becomes the first calculation. The final conference report, becomes the first calculation. Anyway, once we look at that, I think all of us will say, well, what about COVID-19 and what impact will that have on the state revenue? I'm still getting mixed messages from people. I don't have feelers out as many as most of you all do. So I'm still getting very mixed messages about what effect COVID-19 and the state revenue than what the school district got. So,
Mr. Cardy,
oh, yeah.
Mr. Cardy, I recently talked to the chair of the State Board of Education, and, he said he felt the governor, the last place he wants to cut in the state budget is education, but we need to be prepared for, anywhere between, or 20%, 20 to 25%, and that's being echoed by the Florida Chamber too. So those are
Real scary numbers.
terrifying numbers. I made a reference back to the way things were in 2007 and 8. And Mr. Tuck told me it's probably going to be worse.
How long ago did they say that?
This was
This
a
week?
couple of days ago.
I had some emails from previous, I think it was from several weeks, that said, well, we're probably not going to do anything to education. So you're definitely are concerning me, but it's good to talk about it now. So next. So I want to jump into, this has an effect on the revenues and the expenditure, the effect of our K-12 online school. As you recall, at our, I think it was last board meeting, we talked about, or I had a presentation, just a brief little insert in your packet about the impact current year of the K-12 online school. Next year, our FEFP FTEs only included 1,600 students for K-12. K-12 suggested that by next year they will have 2,400, but the state of Florida only allowed them to have 1,600 students in the first calculations. Based on the current number, the FEFP base is 5531 for virtual student, which means that our next year budget will include 8,849,600 estimated of revenue related to K-12 online school. 95% of that we will immediately turn around and pay to K-12, which is 8.4 million. But I think this is why we did this. It also increases our school funds by $442,000. So part of this is a good news. If you want to go back to my previous statement where I talked about the new challenge of $580,000 to make up, there's part of it right there. Did increase school funds by $442,000. If this all followed, if I'm all correct. Let's see. But as a reminder, and I hate to bring this up, we had a $2 million deficit in the current year budget. And when all things settled out, we were at a $2 million deficit for the current year. So I've still got a long way to go. July 19th, I think, is when we had our second calculation, somewhere around there. July 19th, when we get our real money, our real revenue, much better, closer estimate. That's about when we start doing the budget ends. So if we could go to the next slide. So as noted, the FEFP preliminary, which was released on March 15th, it's going to include over $8 million for the K-12 online. I am going to, the next page, show you this, kind of summarize some of the changes in the FEFP. It compares it to last year's pay calculation, the second calculation, which was the basis on which last year's budget was created. And the current year is not finally adopted yet, so that we know that. So we could go to the next screen. Hopefully this comes through. All right, the FEFP 2021, as you can see, the first line represents safe schools this year versus last year. Safe schools is what you use to pay for the SROs and other school safety safety step expenditures. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, well, literally scroll down. Back. If you look at the teacher's salary, the $1,458,000, that is a new part of the FEFP, and that was where they were trying to get all of our teachers pay increase. Oh, thank you. Yes, that's right where that is. The teacher's salary, $1,458,000. We're going to talk about that just a little bit because now what's missing is the best and brightest. From everything I read, nobody really thought the best and brightest was a good program anyway, so that was a good one to throw away. but you can see where the teacher salary went up. The only other one I wanted to highlight is classroom supply, up a little bit at 164,102. That is an increase, but classroom supply monies, your school district doesn't see. What we do is we get the money, immediately turn it around to the bank, where it gets put into a credit card, and each eligible teacher gets to spend that on classroom supplies. So each eligible teacher gets $200, $300 that they can use for classroom supplies for the year.
Ms. Riccardi, if I
Ms.
can,
Riccardi?
Oh, back.
yeah, if I could just interrupt, on teacher salary, which represents the starting salary that was proposed by the legislature, that might be the first thing that our sources, my sources are saying is might be on the chopping block during this special session, but we have no idea when that special session is coming. So that piece might be gone.
Ms. Riccardi,
Yes.
I'm looking here at sparsity supplement, and we took a $212,000 drop. Why is that?
I don't know.
Is this something that has happened in other rural districts?
Yes, that's what happens. Sparsity is one of those things that the large districts don't like, and so they glom onto that right away every year during the budget season, because they don't see the need for us to have that. So sparsity flips back and forth. We've been fortunate for the past few years that they have held steady, but as they were going through the budget, looking at how to fund the teacher salary piece, they start chipping away in places where they can do that. So the sparsity issue is something that hit across the state. It's not in statute, so it's part of the budget every year that the state develops.
I didn't know if K-12 enrollment influenced our sparsity numbers or not.
No, it did not. And there was some move on that, but we were very proactive with the legislature, and we did not want that. K-12 should not impact us because those are not our students. And sparsity is based on students who we educate. So we cannot be doing what the State Department and others had sought to be done by offering additional choices for parents and then be turned around and punished for it. So no, nor is there a cap on how many that we were saying, but sparsity is a fight, it's an issue every single year. That's why when I talked to the legislatures during our town meeting, local delegation meetings, it always maintain sparsity.
All right, keep talking, because I want to do, I'm still looking at that, because I didn't. Oh, maybe I can compare. He said keep talking like no one ever says that, so I'm super excited. So I also see we took a ding in turnaround. Is that because the turnaround situation has gotten better? Or they just pulled back funding on that? That one I can look up easier.
Got two in front of me that I can compare their totals. So supplemental. No.
So I have a question while she's looking this up. And is there any way that we could actually sit in the boardroom and do this and still broadcast this live? Like we're doing now? These virtual meetings just don't work for me.
Okay, I'm going to steal Ms. Nelson's thunder. She has also expressed displeasure. Yes, we can hold our meetings in the boardrooms. The issue is we have to maintain our social distance. So we might be able to sit at the dais as we do. We'll spread out about the room. We are limited to how many people can be in there, so that what we could do, if we have like an 11th or 12th person come in, and some of those people want to address the board, we can hold them in another room. And then when they wanted to come talk to us, we could go get them and they could come talk to us. But as I was counting up, I think we about filled up with people, even who were here, but yes, we could. It would be optimal if you want to get rid of this type of meeting, that we stay in our boardrooms, okay? We do have bigger rooms elsewhere, but we don't have, when we go, we have to take our stuff. And we don't have all that stuff to take. And if you'll recall in the past, when we have used the auditorium or a school library, it presents another set of problems. But yet we can live stream from the board, and we're doing that, and people are it's hard to hear, and it's hard to be heard in the bigger rooms. That's why I would say if the board wants to go to the boardroom, we can. Now, problematically, I'm not sure you can make a decision about that tonight, but the problematic thing is that we have to post tomorrow where we're gonna be next Tuesday. So we might have to do this one more time and then go back to our regular, if that's the board's.
I think it would be a pretty simple fix. I mean, even if we put half of us, half of us in the front, just give every other chair or whatever, I think we can maintain our distance fairly simply. And I think it would definitely make the meetings easier and just a lot better meeting personally.
I agree.
Amen, I do too.
Amen.
Yes.
I can go either way, I'm not attached to one or the other.
Madam Chair, this is Dr. Mundy.
Thank you.
I can speak to the turnaround that Ms. Riccardi is looking at. That is for LES because they have that extra funding for 2 years. So they got it for the current year and they'll get it for next year. And the reason it's gone down is because their FTE, their student enrollment has actually dropped just a little bit.
Thank you, Dr. Money. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Let's, go ahead.
I'm sorry, is our board turning on tonight?
I don't see her in the grid.
Who's he asking for?
The
The
attorney?
attorney,
I don't see her.
I did not ask for her to show up for this one.
Your day was fine.
Okay, and the reason I was asking is
You want to risk breaking the law and getting spanked with whatever they spank unless we have a meeting next
Yeah.
Tuesday in the boardroom?
Yeah,
Go ask.
well, we can do, but this is not what.
well, you shouldn't be, workshops are not for taking action,
Right.
Yeah, we know that, but I'm tired of this.
and
Sorry.
we set the example, and even though it's not ideal, I personally don't think that just I've been in front of an ethics commission before, I'm just saying, I don't think y'all wanna be there.
Yes.
So how the rest of the board feels, I think it's worth taking the chance, personally.
We can do this one more time, and at our next board meeting, you can take action to move, okay? So that would be the safest things that I can recommend for you to do. Now, the
Yeah.
other issue that we have, like Madam Chair, tonight, I can hear you loud and clear. But sometimes it breaks up, so I'm not getting everything that you folks are saying. So, yeah, let's do this. It's not gonna be, we can bite the bullet one more time, then we'll bring this up at the next meeting and determine at that time where we're gonna do it and how we're gonna do our meetings.
I agree, yeah, I can have that, but this is not working here.
Okay. All right, so does that mean you want to proceed with this? Or not?
I'll see us doing that thing. Yeah, with the workshop.
Yes, I mean, I want to continue. I've marked this time off and I've taken my time to read the presentation. I would like to proceed.
That's.
I mean, we're not taking action here, we're just having a conversation.
Okay, we'll proceed.
Proceed.
Ms. Riccardi, are you ready for the next slide?
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'm gonna do a little bit more research on the sparsity of supplement rather than try to answer it off the fly here, okay? If that's okay. But I think.
Yes, ma'am, that's fine. I think this superintendent provided clarity on that. And, you know, when I go back and think about the legislative priorities from past years, I know that sparsity, you know, even with our small district lobbyists, they're always having to work for that because it's a roller coaster, so.
Yeah.
When we were looking at that last page, I know you know this, but if it's an allocation, if the state requires us to be spending that money on the net function, we provide verification at year end that we spend that money on safe schools on that reading plan. I already mentioned about how the classroom supply monies are given via debit card directly to eligible teachers, generally in September. And again, the best and brightest was removed with the teacher's salary replacing it, and that may be, as Superintendent Paletti suggested, that could be where things go. Next. Oh, so what I wanted to mention was the increase overall in the FEFP was $10,476,595. But of that, 8.4 million of it is the amount that's going to K-12. The teacher increase represents $1,458,643. So the real increase was only $610,000. I wanted to put that into big perspective because when you look at a $10 million increase, it looks wow, but it's really not that much. And again, a lot of it, as you saw earlier, was in committed allocations. But again, I just wanted to put that into perspective, that once you take out those two big ones, it's not a $10 million increase. Next slide. Next slide, that was boring. I think you all know this, you all have been have talked about this plenty, that you know that our budget and our accounting system is completely presented on the basis of functions and objects in the red book. We develop a budget using the function codes and the object codes established by the state of Florida. We don't have an option in any of that. So for example, my line item in our budget would be all those numbers, 00, 100, 9002, et cetera, workers comp. There's just a lot of, the only point is there's a lot of numbers there. Next, that was just an overview of some of our accounting structure. We talked earlier, this Florida law does require us to adopt a balanced budget. That is where the beginning fund balance plus current year revenue sources do not exceed current year appropriations and ending fund balances. We have every year had a balanced budget. What we're looking for, obviously, is a budget that doesn't consume our fund balance. Now, how can that work? Several years, even if you budget where you're using fund balance, you don't always use it because things happen, as I said earlier. You have people leave, you budget somebody at $40,000 and they leave mid-year, or they start mid-year, and they only spend $35,000 of it. You know what, you're not gonna spend the full appropriation. So that's how you can even have a balanced budget and have a surplus at your end, or you can start with a budget that is using surplus and technically never your surplus. Next, and then next, because I don't want to. The budget itself is divided into 6 fund types. The primary focus of everyone is going to be on the general fund because that's the one that's got the unrestricted money, where most of your operations are going to be. We had talked this year about doing a modified zero-based budget. Best management practice is usually performance-based budgeting or program budgeting. A zero-based budget is where the budget starts at absolute zero and you build upon that. I want an employee to do A, I want an employee to do B, therefore I've got $40,000 and $40,000 employees, and you start from scratch. In a practical world, our budgets, including most budgets, including Hendry County Public Schools and probably almost everywhere I've ever been or known to be, it's a line item budget. Line item programming, perhaps, well, the program includes the school. That is, the program itself is the success of LaBelle High School, Clewiston High School. Those are the programs themselves. A zero-based budget takes a hard line approach to expending funds. So we're going to give an example on the next page of where we are. Now these are next. Oh, that's not as easy to see as I'd hoped. Sorry about that. You're gonna have to bear with me on this. This is in particular the finance department budget, and it is a direct download into an Excel spreadsheet from what is currently in the system for the 2020-21 budget. So I told you that we created this budget by hand. That is for fiscal service salaries. I took the salaries of each of the employees. There are 8 positions budgeted in that. I make sure that I compare their current salaries to the position. We've got a position control book, and that is what is an authorized position by the board, and make sure that the right positions are budgeted and where. I've got a part-time salary that's funded fully by Medicaid. That's what that next line is. I have one person who's in the drop program, and you'll see that those, now, prior year, even though I had somebody in the drop program, their payoff wasn't included, and you'll find that throughout the budget. I'm hesitant whether or not it should be in the individual budgets, or if it should be in a lump sum in the superintendent's office like it has been in the past. For now, I was trying to, where I knew it was appropriate, to put it in the individual department's budget. So you know that's what's coming. Retirement, again, you can see that we put the retirement in based on adding together or multiplying the salaries times the 10% FRS rate, instead of the last year, which was 8.47. Let's see what else have I got. I'm going to scroll. I'm going to keep on going down. Obviously, Social Security, Medicare, they're fixed numbers based on the amount of salaries. Insurance is also going to be based on the number of people. We budget people at $9,000 a year, which should cover their dental and their regular insurances. But the big one here is going to be for, is going to be for professional and technical services. The current year budget was $109,000. This is one of those places where you did not want me to just take last year's budget and plug it back in. You want to do an analysis, or in other words, a zero-based budget. Say, what are you supposed to do? What does it cover? For this particular department, we'd already talked about the Vanguard office cleanings, $22,164 a year. We have something called Rapid Software, which runs the cost report. We do this department pays for the internal funds audit. We have 2 actuarial reports. This department pays for the decrued unemployment contract, where they review all unemployment claims, $1,800. We generally do about $250 worth of professional outsourced printing. Rapid Solutions prepares the cost report for us, and CLA prepares the financial audit for the internal funds only for us. So that's what all those numbers mean. And in the end, instead of being $109,000, it's $72,000 for next year, which is a $37,000 decrease. And that's only part of it, because when we look at repair and maintenance, last year we budgeted 15,000. That included what I believe was the Vanguard, part of the Vanguard office cleaning contract, so I removed that. All we have is $2,500 for repair and maintenance. It's just to fix stuff that breaks in our building for next year. Going down, communications at 5,100, there was finance department, what do you have $5,100 worth of communications for? That is advertising, primarily two things. It's advertising, because we advertise for any of the RFPs, the bids, and the budget. And we also pay, I wrote it down here somewhere. I want to say it's $200 a month in mailing out bills, because we're mailing out bill payments. So that, I can't believe it. I can't read it in my writing. But anyway, so that is going to be what communications is. Start from scratch, what does it include? And that's how we got from 5,100 or to 5,100 from 6,000. This department pays electric bills for the facility we're in at estimated $12,500. Supplies are pretty, for that one, I just took an average. I would be hard pressed to do a zero based on that, because it's paper, ink, toners, pens, supplies, staples. It's a very hard one. We just go by average every month, average every year. We don't have any of the print service requests, the copier supplies, we're not doing any of that. In the other following line items, we're non-cap FF&E. That was 1,850 we have for next year. Rather than just say what we did in the past, which was $3,000, we said we know we need 2 sets of office chairs, plus there's another set of office chairs. Our office chairs are falling apart. If you've been into our office, you know that we're sitting on chairs that are falling apart. So we were going to get some office chairs, including my chair. Room dividers in the payroll division, they requested for this year, and I didn't fund it. So I asked for it next year, and I think that's it. Oh, and calculators, and a hand sanitizing dispenser. That was the type of things that they asked for in that particular line item for next year. We're requesting a computer plus a mouse. Anyway, for next year. And for the software, we're requesting for 2 Adobe softwares. That was what that one is. And under the dues and fees, I had 1,500, and I know for a fact that I had $1,000 requested, because I know exactly what I was getting. I don't know if you all care, but that's going to be decreased. I've already got it in my notes from 1,500 to 1,000, because I know what my dues and fees are for next year. So, point of all this is, what this went is by doing a zero-based. We went from 575,000 to 546,000, and more importantly, we know the program. At any point, my boss can say, what is Rapid Solutions of you doing it? What happens if you stop doing it? Well, it's my cost report. We need to have the cost report done. When I asked about the DeGroot, which is something I pay every year, and I realized that they have kept, from the time we've gotten them on board, they keep the unemployment claims to within reason, which is great. It's a very important, important function. So, but when we go to the next one, you'll find out that it's important for more reasons, and that is, what if I thought I was paying for DeGroot, and HR, I thought they were paying for DeGroot, we both budgeted. You would have an increased budget of $1,800 that you didn't need. And that's what I was finding out in my next one. Next. Next. This is going to be an example of how zero-based worked. 9105 is called instructional services, and I believe this used to be the second deputy superintendent's budget. Right now, for next year, the only thing we're budgeting in this includes dual enrollment costs. That's that top line. It includes, and I've checked every year, so what I've done is before I let these numbers get entered, I went back. Before I let these numbers get entered, I checked what we spent every year. So every year we spent about $145,000 in Florida Southwestern, about $15,000 at Fort Myers Technical College, and $1,000 at GCDO and other smaller schools, for a total of $100,000 to $165,000. Good to know, it's good to know. Now, when I go down to the 3,100, where it says Avid payment of 57,000, that's gonna change. I've put that as a plug figure, and I've got to reach out because I don't know what Avid, I know what Avid is, I mean, who doesn't? It's advancement via individual determination. It's a great program, but I don't know where all the costs are. I don't know what this costs. So I just want to make sure that before we finalize the budget for 57,000, whatever, that we know what we're paying for. The next line item is supplies. It's supplies of the copier in that boardroom. Then below that, there's 8 advanced placement exams that every year is right at 35,000. Copier maintenance, this particular location pays for the copier maintenance as well as supplies for the copier. And the very last one is the example how zero CBD worked. As I was pulling up this, I found Follett for 14,000 every year, okay with that. $58,000 this year was iBoss. Blackboard was 21,000. So when we talked with the technology, she says, well, Anne-Marie, iBoss was a one-time expense. I don't need that money next year. So if we'd done like we always did, and said, well, we budgeted it for last year, let's budget for it this year, we would have had $58,000 that we didn't need. So that plus, I may have Blackboard. When I look at Blackboard, I think I need to put it in technology. I think technology should be funding it. So I might need to either move it out of here. Oh, Blackboard, you may want to confirm on this, but to the best of my knowledge, Blackboard is the product that we use when we send out emails or phone calls to groups about things going on at the schools. Is that correct? Is Mr. Paletti able to confirm that? Is that what Blackboard is?
That's when I do a call out or a school does a call out, it's through Blackboard, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Paletti,
Yes,
Blackboard is also our webpage host and our call-out system.
yeah, okay.
Thank you. So what the importance of that is, I don't like it being, this is sort of an unmanaged, unmonitored budget right now, 9105. I would rather see the department that Mr. Adams is talking about, the technology department, say, we're in charge of that, therefore it goes in our budget. So that's the one thing I want to move, is I was thinking that particular line item needs to be included in technology's budget, not out here. I'm guessing how it happened was one year nobody budgeted it, and we had money in 9105, and then it got stuck. That's not, you all know that's not the best way to do things. So I've talked a little bit about Avid, my concerns. Oh, my point about this is you can see that we are in, this is just now point blank numbers dumped into a screen. I've tried to analyze each one, and I keep coming up with more questions. We got a long way to go, but the good news is we have time. We're still working on it. And when y'all, this working from home may seem like it's not working, it's great. I worked until about midnight on Saturday night on this. Just on plugging in numbers and trying to find things out. It's great having access. So, next. Where we are right now, and this is the hard part to swallow, is I entered, either me or my second in command is Sandra Mills. Don't know whether or not you know Sandra Mills very well, but she has been in contact. She and I work together to enter in all the budget data. And what we've got right now is revenue less than expenditure is about $1.9 million. The numbers haven't been verified. I think I told you that I was manually calculating things like Social Security, Medicare. Sandra caught me doing 62% instead of 6.2%. And she pointed it out to me, and we made the correction. So we are verifying the data as we enter it. We've got a lot more verifications, but frankly, that was, a $500 error. We're not talking about something huge. Or we want to check all of our expenditures as well as our revenues. Decimal points are important, but we have a long way to go. The reason why I'm prepared, this is not a good budget right now. Obviously, if I'm $1.9 million out of budget, it's not good. It's not good. But I wanted you all to know where we are. I don't want you all to think we're sitting here waiting for things to happen. We've got all the numbers in the system, and we're editing it. Mr. Paletti's was waiting for this, for him to be given this, so that he could start doing what he wanted to do, and that is, questioning, why are we doing this way? The experience of the directors and the principals is where it's gonna come into play. If they see, go back to Avid, why did you put Avid at 57,000? That included 2 years worth of information, or whatever. Somebody who's smarter than me when it comes to that is gonna have to answer some of these questions. Did I miss revenues? Did I miss expenses? Absolutely. Today, I think I found a $30,000 expenditure I missed. And I know that I've not included anything, which should be a net zero for our workforce. I'm also still looking to confirm the pay supplements and drop sick and vacation payouts are budgeted properly. Did not include an increase in health insurance. Mr. Seeley is waiting, will let me know if he ever finds anything out about that. Interestingly enough, this projection filled all authorizations at the budgeted level with no vacancies. That is, if a teacher position, which is a $40,000 position, is filled with a permanent sub, I budgeted it at the base rate for a teacher. That may not be the best way to do it. So, the difference may be $15,000. $15,000, if you get 20 of those positions, adds up to $300,000 pretty quick. So we need to discuss, do we like budgeting? I like budgeting, knowing if I'm going to have a teacher full-time, I've got the money funded. But maybe that's not the way we're supposed to do it. Again, duplicated revenues and expenditures, not likely, but possible. That means that, well, in fact, we just talked about it. If I put Blackboard in 9105 and I put it in the technology department, that's a double budget. Right now, I think that one may be, so again, that's not likely, but it's possible. Now, I say 1,936,000. This is not much better than last year's deficit. Operations can still be funded from fund balance if needed, but that's not where I want to go with it. That's not where the superintendent wants to go with this. But if I didn't tell you where we are now, I'd feel like I wasn't keeping you up to date on where we are. We have a long way to get out, but I want you to know we're working on it. I think that's, I could go where we just were with the 9105 and the finance department. We could do this. It's a lot of work. We could do this for every one of the departments, because every one of the departments right now, every department has numbers entered. So some things haven't been spread. We have, if you wanted to see those allocations, the allocations for instructional materials, about $700,000. I plugged that. I've not put that into school yet, but little things like that haven't been done. So,
Maureen?
Yes.
On this net here for 2021, the 1.9 deficit, is that just the 2021 deficit, or is that the this current year's deficit? Is that in addition to the current deficit we have, or is that all together rolling over?
No, there is no rollovers. I'm glad you brought that up, because I did not include any rollover. No, nothing in there. This is simply taking 2021 revenue expected minus 2021 expenditures.
And so, with the way this budget sits now, the way things are shaking out here, to go forward like this would mean to add this additional 1.9 deficit to a current $2 million deficit. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So there would be a $4 million deficit.
Right, every year there would be a consumption, there would be an additional consumption. That is correct. And I'm bringing that up, but we know that's not where we're going to be. So I know exactly, I know why you're pointing this out, but that's not where this budget intends to be.
So I think that I'm misunderstanding you also, Ms. McCarty. I'm reading this as 1.9 million deficit on this year's budget proposal moving in. Right, we took the fund that we have, and then going into the next year, this is how much we'd be short. Is that correct?
That is, I have this particular report, and as soon as, when I started this afternoon, I thought, I know how much the board likes to discuss fund balance, and that should have been part of this presentation. Because I think what I understood Mrs. Busen, or the Madam Chair, to be saying was, this year, we're gonna consume, the current year we're in, 1920, we're going to consume $2 million of fund balance. Next year, we're going to consume another, but that's not on top of this. Oh, I see what you're asking. Next year, we're not consuming 4 million.
No, that's
No,
what I would, yeah.
I see what you're
So
saying.
what we have is, this is the number that I said that was gonna be close to what we were gonna end up, not the 4 million that we thought earlier. So this would be what we have to look at, and right now, in the perfect world, you could make this balance based on what your fund balance is. That's not what we need to do. For example, before we even close out this year, we need to look at how much we've paid in salaries, because we have quite a few, not bumps in the road, but where we did not hire somebody, or where somebody left and then they were replaced with a permanent sub. Also, right now, going into building next year, but it looks like we have a reduction of 6 teaching units. And that's just at the elementary level, equal on both ends of the county. So it's the drop of 3 in Clewiston, a drop of 3 in LaBelle. Central and west side hold steady. East side appears to have dropped. Over here, it appears Upper Grove dropped 2 and LES dropped 1. So building that budget, we're already gonna build in 6 less teaching units, plus some of the other things we go through, plus the fact that we never spend the entire budget. So you're going to be in somewhat, that 1.9 is actually gonna come down compared to what we do next year. Pardon?
Yeah, so it shouldn't come down a lot based on what you just said.
Yeah, so see, that will come back. Now, the board needs to look at its policy of the 6% hold versus the one-time, 1 year, 3% reserve. Because we do have, here's my major concern, I want you to just kind of let this sink in. Disney World has an average daily attendance of 57,000 people. Let's assume that every day they spend at least $100. And you know they do that on tickets. We're not talking about accommodations, we're talking about food. So multiply that out, 57,000, assume $100 per person plus 6%, and you're getting an idea of every day that's closed, how much we're losing. Now, I'm hoping, and I'm getting mixed messages also, so I'm glad I heard the chairwoman say what she said about her conversation with the chair Tuck, because we're getting information that says, don't worry about it, we have reserves. But folks, I would rather worry about it and take appropriate steps, and then let's be happy if things are not as bad. But you're going to be in a better position than you were in 07, 08, because you're gonna build and you're gonna skim this budget so that the district is not rocked back on its heels, okay, like it was in 08 when there was no reserve. So yeah, that 1 million is gonna drop significantly, and then you can look at some other things. That's why you also have that list of all of the contracts. Some of those contracts I don't think you want to touch, but it's important, and by that I'm saying things such as the SROs and things of that nature. But it's important for us as we go through this process that we understand that there are no cheerleaders for any programs, that it is on the line. And if the board wants to add something back, the board can add something back. But if we take a look at a program and say, this should not really be, this is nice, but it's not essential to the instruction of children, that we need to make the tough decisions without, well, but And well, you know how it goes, you've been on the board long enough to know that what's gonna happen, but we wanna know and put forth probably from this moment on that there are no sacred cows.
Glenn, in this point here,
Okay,
somebody's
somebody's
talking about taking us from that 6 down to that 3, is that it? Can you hear me?
okay, you're one of the ones who fades in and out. You said, I know you're saying something about the 6 down to 3.
Is that included in this budget?
I don't think so.
No,
So
I've not run into fund balance at all.
right away, that does what a significant part of what you're doing. But I would not recommend you consider that your way of work, because fortunately, the board did have insight to keep that 6% for events such as this. And do it once, and then build it back in as quickly as you can. You may, as Anne Marie and I continue to work, you might want to look at it and say, okay, let's go to 5% or 4%. Okay, but let's work on this zero-based budgeting throughout the departments. Let's take your input, and y'all have asked for that sheet forever, but I would much rather, and I feel much safer, if we do the hard things and find out we did not have to do the hard things and we can actually put some things back in, than to all of a sudden look at people and this would be real, you're not working here next year. You know, I don't want to live through that.
Well, obviously, I'd like to see if we're gonna do that, I would like to see us take it to 4.5% to start off with. We'll see what that looks like, rather than blowing the whole 3% at one time. Just take us 1% down, take it to 4.5, and then we start a little bit of a cooking back there if we need it.
Yeah, why don't you let us prepare what the 6% looks like, 5, 4, 3, and then you'll get the whole idea. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, I would like to see the numbers, because if you have 2% worth of need, I definitely don't want to give you 3% worth of, budget for that. So, you know, I think that having the numbers up front and what you're proposing would be helpful.
Okay, that's good.
Next. Oh, I think pretty much.
Are you folks, do you have any more questions for Ms. McCarty? Before I leave this one on you? It's not bad. Are you ready? Okay. We have, this is budget related, and I would need to get a tentative thumbs up. We have had a battle and a problem with Clewiston transportation since I can remember. I would like to offer 6 part-time positions to our current employees to drive routes in Clewiston. That solves every problem we have with overcrowding in buses, because we'll put 6 additional buses on the road. We will rework routes. Here's how it can happen. We look at teachers, custodians, paras, and we offer them a run. And if each school would give us one, and we could hold each teacher or person who runs that bus their students, so that you're not taking a central teacher, for example, and giving them a high school run. A Hendry or a West Side or East Side run. We pay them at the starting salary of a bus driver, $14.41 per hour. That would be getting into overtime when some of these people go over 40 hours, but you are paying a lot of overtime now. All right? The other issue is that these people would not be costing us benefit because they already have their benefit package. So this would be an additional, it would be similar to a teacher who says, yes, I will teach at the adult school. So I would like you to give me a clear thumbs up so that we can start. You can't make a decision now, but I can start getting everything in place. First of all, to see if there are people who will salute or not salute, okay? And then I can get you the budget figures out for that at our next meeting. And by the way, I would recommend that we have, even if it's just between regular meetings, budget meetings and workshops to continue this process.
I like seeing you guys every Tuesday.
We are having trouble, we cannot fill the jobs in Lewiston, and we have tried.
I'm okay with it, I know.
Your workshops, for sure.
I know we had a problem with bus driver a long time, and that will really help us. Hey, I'm for it.
Assuming we can get people to do it.
Yes.
Mr. Banks, when you broke up, I couldn't, was that sort of a thumbs up to look at it?
I think it's definitely looking at, for sure. And, whatever we need, we gotta fill the positions, then let us look long, and I think we definitely continue these budget workshops for sure.
Yeah.
So we all have a better understanding of this budget and make sure that we are making the proper decisions here.
Okay, I see Ms. Nelson saying yes, and Ms. Buseman, yes for the continued work,
Yes.
or for us, the bus driver.
Yes from Busen on continued workshops. And yes from me, I would be interested into, hearing, actual costs on the bus drivers and if we have the interest from the current staff.
Okay, but I need that before I can get you that. Okay, thank you, Dr. Bird.
Yes, I go on with it.
Okay, thank you. A couple other things for information. First of all, CNB Farms today donated 280 boxes of food for Hendry County school employees, and they were distributed equally in Lewiston and LaBelle. And it was a very, very great gesture. Our schools have also been working with hosting, and thanks to Mrs. Busen for getting us with the Howard Hill who donated and distributed in LaBelle, and they serviced like 500 families last Saturday. The line at LaBelle Middle School, if you will imagine in your head, going out of the parking lot from the middle school down Cowboy Way toward 80, the line stretched from the school to within 1,000 feet of 80. It was a 2-mile long line.
Wow, that's a line.
Yeah, and I can't speak to Lewiston because I don't know what they did, but they decided, hey, we've done it in LaBelle. It's my understanding, or we've done it in Lewiston. Let's do this in LaBelle. And the turnout was very good today.
Wow.
And they also took the leftovers and they're into the party and they've been gracious.
One reason I'm looking forward to getting back into the boardrooms is, Mr. Masco, I know you don't talk that way, but there's we got your head on every other syllable, not word.
Yes, robotic.
He's trying.
Yeah, I'll give you an A for the effort.
And the green from the room is priceless.
Yeah.
Okay. What boardroom?
What turn is it? I'm on track with time.
What day?
Yeah,
you're right with the.
That's generally Lewiston.
Either one.
I will go for it.
First meeting in May is gonna be, unfortunately, this. So the second meeting in May, that we will go back to our normal way of work. One other thing, while I have you, and then I promise I'll stop. No new word on graduation. However, both schools are having some sort of event. It's like at 8:20 for the 2020 military time. A light up of the stadium, and they're inviting the seniors to drive through with their families, but they're all gonna be like in one car. That serves a couple of, first of all, it helps us celebrate these children, these students, these young men and ladies. It also gives us an idea of how many cars, if we have to go to a virtual graduation, this is like it's a celebration, but also a dry run to what that could look like.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, you're invited if you want to go to either school. It's at 8:20, be there by 8 o'clock on Friday night.
And what is the procedure for those of us who might come? Are we standing?
And I'm going to one of them, but I'm standing and I'm passing out candy bars. I'm gonna hand them something, okay? So we'll probably be standing in the end zone.
Okay. And we know how many, have they RSVP'd as to whether they're attending?
So, and I don't have numbers in close. I talked to Mr. Sanchez today, but Bell is anticipating about anywhere between 200 to 250.
So Friday night,
This Friday, yes. And Katie and at Bell Stadium, yes,
April, May 1st,
May 1st, yes.
May 1st. Okay.
I hear fire in the background.
Go somewhere.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'm done.
All right, I don't know if you wanted to discuss any, of our board member priorities. I know that that was the last frame in the slideshow. Or we are tired, I mean, if you're on a tap route on this one, or.
You have, probably, yeah.
Bring it.
This isn't the end all of what this process. But yes, your priorities need to be included in this and your input on our general fund contracts. So that's what I need to know, because you're gonna ask questions, particularly about those contracts, where we can explain more about what that is. And when we look at each other and say, duh, well, maybe we need to pull it out, you know? So yeah, figure out if you have priority, let's do it, or we can start at that point at the next budget meeting with additional numbers that Anne Marie is gonna work with me and get.
Well, one of the things that Anne Marie said in some email correspondence, was, talking to some of these vendors and these people we have contracts with, as far as, is this the best you can do? What we're doing, we're facing budget cuts. Can you help us out here? I know just in personal experience, I just did that with my homeowners and auto insurance, and I was shocked at what I walked away with, what a better deal. And I know that was like our concern, the $150,000 on insurance. I don't know if like our policy for like an insurance broker like locks us into this person, but are we shopping our contracts around? Are we asking for a better deal?
Well, we started that process now with health insurance. Remember, you have like 2 years.
2-year contract.
Okay. Yeah, we bid that, but we certainly could.
Yeah.
There was silence.
Maybe.
And then another thing I wanna look at is our enrollment numbers. I heard, a couple of times, that brought up with, allocations being rolled back. And then, it was mentioned again when we were talking about LES and that their enrollment had dropped. And I made that comment before that I'm concerned about enrollment drops, and I was just wanting to know if we could quantify that. Like, where were we at last year as opposed to where are we at right now with our enrollment? And, because, and I know that Mr. Pletty had talked about before, like the kindergarten classes are getting smaller and smaller. I mean, I don't know, I'm not out counting kids, but I would like to kind of see a comparative of where we have been at this point, where we are now, and what we're anticipating on future enrollment.
Okay.
Okay.
You say, okay.
All right.
So the May 1st meeting is where?
No, May 1st meeting is the senior event at either high school. Then the May 5th meeting is gonna be online.
May 5th is online. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go to Mayo. Can we bring tacos? Kelly,
That sounds like good.
if you are interested in the Friday night under the lights event, let me know. I can pick you up and we can go to that.
Okay.
We would like to represent from the LaBelle side. We can't be in both places, but
Right, yeah.
And I'm gonna try to know that my grandson is in his graduating class, so I'm gonna be in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's all right.
this chair I'm sitting on feels like your church pews from a childhood, Stephanie. Oh,
Well, y'all learn anything today? My mom would say, don't complain about the church streets. You hear anything, Stephanie? All right, guys. I'm sorry. All right, we enjoyed this one out. All right, guys, y'all have anything else? Anything you want to discuss or?
just get ready for hugs when I see you when we're allowed.
Better believe it, it's gonna be a group hug. All right, kids. All right, well, with that, we'll adjourn this workshop. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.